Is Texas Chainsaw 3D 2013 awesome or awful? We're about to find out. Welcome everyone. This is Mike from FearShop.com. Today we're talking about Texas Chainsaw 3D from 2013. Is it awful or awesome? We're going to discuss that today. We're going to break down all the awesome elements, all the awful elements, and finally come down to a verdict on whether Texas Chainsaw 3D is actually awesome or awful. Before we get into it, make sure you're liking this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you're setting up notifications. Go ahead and drop a comment into this video as well. Let me know what you think of it. Sticking around until the end of the video. Definitely leave you with some conversation points to keep this conversation going after the video. Alright, so Texas Chainsaw 3D. This is a film directed by John Luessenhop, starring Alexandra Daddario, Dan Yeager, Trey Songz, Tania Raymonde, and Tom Barry. First and foremost, Alexandra Daddario. Oh, Maron. I'll watch pretty much anything with her in it. I could literally just sit there and stare at her all day long. Not to say she's not an interesting actress as well, but Maron. Alright, synopsis of the film. A young woman travels to Texas to collect an inheritance. Little does she know that an encounter with a chainsaw-wielding killer is part of the reward. So basically this is a 3D film, slasher film, directed by Luessenhop, screenplay by Adam Marcus, Deborah Sullivan, and Kirsten Elms, story by Steven Sisko, Marcus, and Sullivan. Direct sequel to the 1974 horror classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Director John Luessenhop had not really done much direction before this movie. He had a couple of feature-length films that didn't do much. He has not directed a film since. He did executive produce the 2007 Leatherface film, along with about 20 other people, though. Alright, awesome elements. Like I said, we're going to break down the awesome, we're going to break down the awful, and then we'll get to our verdict. Awesome, I kind of already said it. Alexandra Daddario, enough said. Hate to be an animal, but it warrants it with her. Another awesome element. Some of the cast members from the original 74 movie returned to play roles from this film. Marilyn Burns, John Dugan, and even Gunnar Hansen, who was the original Leatherface, had some cameos in this film. That was pretty awesome. Another awesome element. Some of the kills were gruesome. Another awesome element. Leatherface's iconic door slam, paying homage to the original movie. It doesn't take much to please me. And another awesome element. I love the idea of picking up where the first film left off. I give him kudos for that, but filling the film with unlikable characters was not something I can get behind. I guess with that being said, we definitely had some unlikable characters in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre as well. Some of them were portrayed to be unlikable, and some of them just ended up being that way. So now, let's go into the awful elements in the movie. And surprising to me, I'm going to say Alexandra Daddario, but not in the way you think. If she was a baby during the events of the first film, that would have made her around 40 years old in this film. She's playing somebody who looks like they're in their 20s. They could have done a little bit better with that one. Not saying they should have replaced her, just for the record. But she could have played another role in here. But it is interesting when you're saying there's like a 20-year gap. Another awful element. The film lacks the suspense of most of the films in the series. But if this is the direct sequel to the original, they missed the suspense that film had. This was more of an attempt to have a couple of hot girls scantily clad for a lot of the film. Not complaining, just saying that's what they were going for. Alright, awful. Unlikable characters. I kind of alluded to this earlier. We had some throwaway characters that were in there just so they could get killed, and then you just had very unlikable people. Another awful element. How does Leatherface escape the fire completely unharmed? Seems a little weird. Another awful element. what's the purpose of Daryl the Hitchhiker? I get there's a reference to a hitchhiker from the first film. I guess they wanted to kill off somebody earlier that not would impact any scenes with the girls. Just really poor story writing. He just kind of pops in, pops out, and that's it. Another awful element from Alexandra Daddario. I can't believe I'm saying it, but do your thing, cause really, as much as I love Alexandra, that was cringeworthy. She didn't write it. She was doing the best she could with it. Another awful element. Too much going on at times with too many plot twists. There's no point in Officer Carl Hartman turning out to be Mayor Bert's son. There was so many things going around. And I think if they focused on less, they could have done more with those elements. Another awful element, the 3D effects were bad. Very bad. In addition, the CGI effects were bad. Another awful element, and you can say this about a lot of films, but this film was filled with horror cliches. Just could have done better. And the last awful element, Leatherface is no longer a feared killer, but one that we're supposed to sympathize with. That one's an odd one to me. I mean, you know, you kind of had some people side with Michael Myers, you had some people side with Freddy, some people side with Jason, and all that. You know, I don't know that any of them, outside of maybe Freddy with the jokes, did anything to warrant that attention. But Leatherface is supposed to just basically be a feared killer. You know, it's just a lot different than with some of these other horror icons. But now it's just basically, he's not that bad. He was just kind of wronged, and I really don't like that direction. All right, so we had a few awesome elements, a few awful elements. Time to get down to the verdict. Which element had more points? And the verdict to Texas Chainsaw 3D is that it is awful. I'm going to say I'm a little surprised at arriving in an awful for this one. I've seen it a bunch of times, probably more for Alexandra Daddario more than anything else. It sounds silly for me to say it's not a bad film, right? But at the end of the day, the rules are the rules, and we had more awful elements and more awesome elements. Again, you know, I'll say this with most movies that I deem as being awful. It's not like I'm never going to watch them again. It's just, you know, when I'm trying to make it very, very black and white, very cut and dry, and, you know, like I said, the rules are the rules. You know, I'll probably watch it again this year still. You know, it's not a bad movie, but it's awful, as silly as that makes it sound. But that wraps this video up. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think about this movie as a whole. Let me know the parts of this movie that really bugged you. I know from seeing it online, a lot of people hated the fact that Daddario basically was 20 years younger in this movie than she really should have been. It's just a whole timeline continuation issue. It's not the only element in the film with the horrible writing, but it is the one that jumps out a lot. So in your comments below, let me know what you think are some of your most awful parts in the movie, or let me know if you think that I'm wrong and this film is indeed awesome. So until the next episode, make sure you like this video, make sure you're commenting on this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, but most of all, make sure you keep it horror.